Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto was reborn in high school DxD and secretly trained Issei? Prez. I'm not a swordsman like Kiba, a magician genius like Akino, don't have the ridiculous superhuman strength that Kaneko has, or Asia's healing powers. However, I still want to be the strongest pawn. For your sake, I would destroy even God himself. A green light shone brightly from the jewel embedded in his left arm gauntlet. Shine forth. Overboost. Welsh Dragon Overbooster. This is the power of a low-level devil, balance breaker, boosted gear scale male. The once sealed, balance breaker. Rias, astonished by the Issei's transformation and rapid increase in power, stared at her lowly pawn fighting for her freedom. I'm not through yet. I'll show you the power my sensei entrusted to me. Ah! Issei screamed as power rushes through his recently developed chakra coils. An unearthly, purple light and golden, red-yellow aura erupted from the red dragon armor. The golden energy wrapped around the armor. Single dragon tail split into 9, free-flowing golden tails. 2 ear-like projections grew from the helmet. Soon after, the purple light solidified and engulfed the red aura. The extra layer took shape as well, that of an ancient Japanese samurai. 2 feathery, purple wings jut out from where Scale Male's rockets were located. 6 black orbs comprised of every element formed a halo behind the red dragon emperor. Boosted gear, Susanoo. The transformation finally settled as the wisped smoke clears to reveal Issei's balance breaker in combination with another power, a power that no devil in the royal court knows. Even the Devil King, Seer's ex Lucifer, can only gaze in awe upon the magnificent form. Shinto god of the seas and storms, Susanoo, for the red dragon emperor to name the unknown purple armor after a god, it must be very powerful. Not just that, but the mask possessed a rather elongated nose, resembling a tengu. Riser, Issei's tone suddenly turned dark and serious. In his right hand, he revealed a cross and bottle of holy water. Then, the 6 orbs behind Issei combined with the holy trinkets to form a katana. I'll give you a warning now, surrender, or else. Boost. Transfer. Taking the holy sword with his gauntlet, the red dragon emperor infused Susanoo and blade with his own power. What? How are you holding those objects? They are supposed to cause intense pain to devils. You dare mock me? You lowly, devil slave. Know your place. I'm Riser Phoenix, the next head of the almighty Phoenix clan. You shall perish here. The irate fire bird hurled an enormous flaming ball at Susanoo. However, after the resulting smoke and debris cleared, the attack had no effect. Trembling, Riser threw fireballs again and again, yet the same result repeated continuously. The purple armor cloaking the red dragon emperor nullified all the attacks. Riser, stop! Issei easily knocked aside another fireball. This blade, infused not only with a cross and holy water, contains onmyotin, or so I'm told. I don't understand it myself, but if this cuts you, no matter what powers your clan bloodline offers, you will never recover or regenerate. I don't want to use this, but for President's sake, I will cut you down. Issei declared as he slowly marched toward the quivering Phoenix. The slow march quickly turned into a full-on sprint at speeds which Riser and even higher-level devils could not perceive. Out of nowhere, a thunderous right hook empowered with holy attributes slammed into Riser's face. Asia told me that devils hate crosses and holy water, Issei Hyodo reiterated from his bishop gear, a fact spanning across those of his kind, and that if I used both at the same time, the damage would be too much to recover from. Issei gripped Riser's head and rammed his knee into Riser's face. Kiba told me to think like your enemy when fighting. The 9 tails sprouting from the dragon's tail wrapped around Riser's limbs. He forced the Phoenix to prostrate, ready to decapitate. Akino told me, that magic flows from you through your aura. Concentrate all your energy and just feel the magic waves. Kaneko told me to always aim for the center and never let your guard down. Issei transferred all his power and anger into onmyotin blade. Wait. Razor coughed up as the instrument of his destruction hung over his head. Do you understand what you're doing? Pure-blooded devils drastically decreased in population after the last war. For the sake of all devils, the marriage is absolute. It's not something a lowly, shitty devil like you could understand. I don't understand difficult things. But you know, there is one thing I remember from when you defeated me earlier, a quick but painful image of Rias's face flashed before his eyes. Prez was crying. That is the only reason I need to cut you down. And one final thing my sensei told me, never give up and never go back on my word. That is my nindo. My way. Issei screamed at the top of his lungs. With the power of light and darkness, the blade was ready to end Riser's life. Closing his eyes, Riser waited for the final slash, but it never came. Slowly, but fearfully opening his eyes, he saw his sister, Rebel Phoenix, standing between the Red Dragon Emperor and him. Luckily, Issei was able to stop his blade mid-swing just before it touched the younger Phoenix. If I kill your brother here, the Phoenix clan and you will seek vengeance on me. Issei released Riser from his stranglehold. Rebel quickly caught her brother from falling to the ground. Susanoo and scale mail slowly dissolved. The tension holding Issei up suddenly gave out, and he fell to his knees as well. My sensei told me, we are both but men, driven to seek vengeance under the banner of justice. However, if there is justice in vengeance, then justice will breed only more vengeance. Thus, continuing the vicious cycle of hatred. Dying like trash, never-ending hatred, pain that never heals, that is war. When he told me this, I never understood what he meant, but now, I think I have a small idea. Therefore, I shall spare your brother's life. Yet, who are the ones who write history, you little shit? Issei's eyes widened as Riser kicked him, in the gut, with enough force to dent the opposite wall. The ones who write history are the victors. The losers are thrown into the trash like you. For humiliating me, you'll burn in the Phoenix's everlasting hellfire. Riser, neither heeding his sister's pleas nor listening to Serzetch's call to end the match, readied to incinerate Issei. However, yo, what you think you're doing? I'd think a person of your stature have more class and honor. A hand gripped the salty Riser's wrist. Riser didn't even sense this person. Where had he come from? Jiraiya-sensei, Issei mumbled in relief as his mentor arrives just in time. The hero always arrives at the last second. Right, sensei? Blood spewed from Issei's mouth as his injury from Riser's attack kicked in. He slowly lost consciousness. 2 months ago. Issei Hyodo, 17-year-old high school student, brown hair, light brown eyes, and average in every way possible except in one aspect, lust. His perversion knew no bounds or limits. His 2 friends, Mitsuda and Motohama, and he were known as the perverted trio, amongst his peers at Kuo Academy. Because of this, he has yet to find a girlfriend, though he unknowingly passed first base in the past. Just like any other normal, average day, Issei wore the standard academy uniform, but with a red undershirt and blue sneakers. On his usual route back home from school, there seemed to be an unusual presence coming from the massage spa parlor he normally passed by and periodically peeked at the beautiful females enjoying a sauna. His pervert senses tingling, Issei cut into an alley that led to his group's hidden peephole. However, someone else had the same idea. Said person looked to be into his 50s, long gray, spiky hair tied into a ponytail, 2 shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face, red lines that ran down from his eyes, and an unusually shaped horned forehead protector. To add to his attire, the man wore a green short shirt and pants, and finally wore a red haori. Wearing such clothing in this modern age and giggling, this man was to be avoided, but at the moment, he's monopolizing Issei's personal peephole, and that cannot slide. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Issei taps on the older man's shoulder, but no response. The man was too entranced at the sight before him. I'm right here. Listen, god damn you. The brown-haired teenager kicked him in the back. The resulting impact made a sound which alerted the female spa occupants of a potential peeping Tom. Immediately, they all evacuated the sauna. Damn brat, the gray-haired man picked himself up. He stood at least a head and shoulder height above Issei. What do you think you're doing? I was in the middle of very important research. Research my ass. Issei, pointing his finger accusingly, countered. You're just a creepy old pervert getting off on young ladies. I don't know whether to turn you in or praise you. Who the hell are you? Thanks for asking. The man posed and whipped his long ponytail. Mount. Myoboku's holy master sage, also known as Toad Sage. Believe it. Also, I'm not just a pervert. Then what? Issei felt as if he regretted asking. A super pervert. A lecherous grin spread cheek to cheek as the so-called Toad Sage perverted groped a non-existent pair of breasts. Even Issei's lecherous mind paled in comparison to the perverseness this man excluded from every fiber of his being. However, this man stepped onto his turf. You know, a guy like me committing this act is seen as a prank, but a guy your age will get sent to prison. What's stopping me from contacting the authorities? Issei pulled out his cell phone and threatens to turn him in. What's stopping me from doing this? Jiraiya countered. Oi, oi. This is the guy peeping on you earlier. Please come out and punish him in the cruelest way possible. Every alarm went off in Issei's brain. Turning around, he saw the sauna manager, employees, and female customers blocking the exit, but when he turned back, Jiraiya was nowhere to be seen. Slowly, the gang forced Issei's back to the walls. Eyes quickly shifting left and right, he found no way out of this situation. Accepting his fate, he closed his eyes, but suddenly, what felt like a gust of wind swept him off his feet. When everything settled down, he found himself sitting on a fountain's edge in the local park where Jiraiya handed him what appeared to be an orange book. "Look kid, you and I got on the wrong foot here. Here's my apology." The older man gave him the orange book. "Wah, how did you, what's this?"
Issei's mind went left and right as he incoherently formed
His questions. Taking a closer look at the cover, he immediately recognized the title. Isn't this Make-Out Violence? This is the announced sequel to the best-selling adult novel that came out late last month. How did you get this? Wait, the dots began to connect. Jiraiya, are you the Jiraiya, author of Make-Out Paradise? That I am. I'm surprised you know of my greatness. The first book is off limits to anyone under 18, but who cares about age restrictions? I can tell you have a taste for great writing and art. Tell you what, I'm in need of an assistant. If you keep my identity a secret, I'll make you that assistant, Jiraiya offered to the young man. Stars intensely lit up in said young man's eyes. Nodding his head exuberantly, Issei gladly accepted his offer. Good. Let's meet at this location again tomorrow at this time. Remember, tell no one about this arrangement except your parents, the book, or my identity. Got it. Jiraiya quickly laid out the conditions to Issei's newfound apprenticeship. Accepting any conditions he may have had, Issei, on cloud 9 right under the long-desired fluffy bounce of a woman's breasts, left him. That left arm of his, once Issei was out of sight, Jiraiya's demeanor turned from jovial to serious. There's something in there. Even though this whole town is saturated with energy, that arm in particular gave off an energy that felt eerily similar to him. Does that make him one of them? I'll need to keep a close watch over Issei Hyodo. However, there's something else I need to investigate first. The next day, Friday, a crowd of students split as if Moses commanded the Red Sea to part. The Kuo Academy students made way for the school's two gems, the top idols, Rias Grimoire and Akino Himejima. Both busty, bodily mature for their age, women wore the standard female academy uniform, a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon, a black shoulder cape and matching button-down corset, and a magenta skirt with white accents. Rias Grimoire, heir to the Grimoire clan, had blue-green eyes and amazingly long and beautiful crimson-red hair reaching down to her thighs. A single strand stuck out from the top of the red head. Her best friend and queen, Akino Himejima, was bustier and had long raven hair, violent eyes, pale skin, and beasts comparable to those of Tsunade and the Mizukage. She tied the long hair with an orange ribbon into a ponytail reaching down to her legs. The pair walked down the ordinary school front as if they were celebrities walking down a red carpet. However, a person, oblivious to the unfolding event, accidentally stepped in front of them. The three bumped into each other, but only the two women fell to the ground. My apologies, the student held out his hands to help up the two. He pulled up Rias with his left and Akino with his right. That's okay. We also were not prepared. Rias brushes aside her bangs to get a look at the guy. What she was not prepared for was how handsome the guy was. Even though he was human, his looks were on high male devil standards. Wearing the standard male academy uniform, he had onyx black eyes, chin-length bangs, and spiky hair jutting out the back. His fair skin and looks gave him that Bishonen vibe on par to that of Yuto Kiba. Even the angry female student population fell head over heels just from his face and completely forgot the fact that he bumped into the school's idols. I've never seen you before. New this year? Akino asked as she straightened her skirt. Is it not polite to introduce yourself after helping two young ladies? She flirtatiously suggested with a coy, playful look in her eyes. Sasuke Uchiha, second year, just transferred. I am looking for the admissions department to turn in the necessary forms, the black hair, new student responded formally without a hint of nervousness. His deep, manly voice set a good number of the female students over the edge. Akino pouted, he did not react at all to her attempt to play with his emotions. Was he frigid? Just down the hall on the first floor. Have fun during your time here, Mr. Uchiha, Rias cordially welcomed the new student. She already could tell that he'll make an impact in this school. He already marked his presence amongst the female students as the hottest guy in school before he even stepped foot onto the institution. With a curt, silent nod, Sasuke made his way to the admissions department. Perverted giggles quietly sounded from a pair peeping on the girls' locker room. Normally, this pair had a third member, and the trio routinely peeped on the female kendo club members whilst they changed. The female flesh and soft milky skin nearly sent the two over the edge. However, they wondered where the third member was. What was greater than witnessing the grandeur of the female physique? Unbeknownst to them, someone found them. Silently, said person crept up behind them. Revealing her presence, she tapped the two on the shoulders. Eyes glazed over, they barely noticed a flash of pink before the two were decked by the most powerful punches they'll ever feel in their entire lives. Ah! The student body and Issei Hyodo lifted their heads when a loud scream pierced the entire school building. Sighing, Issei knew what most likely happened. His friends, Mitsuda and Motohama, skipped first period, had been discovered, and the kendo club girls had their way with them, again. This time, though, he was not on the receiving end. Instead, he was in homeroom as he giggled perversely at the chapter he just finished reading. Jiraiya was a genius. The writing style, descriptive scenes, and actual plot had him engrossed from the first chapter. Now he can't put the book down. Even in first period, Issei read almost the whole time and kept his giggles to a minimum, but a few strays got out. When that happened, the whole class knew instantly who the source was, but he didn't care. Though, the teacher did and nearly confiscated the book. The class was abuzz with energy and anticipation. A new transfer student apparently was going to make a debut. Okay, class, I'd like to introduce to you our newest student. Please, introduce yourself, the teacher instructed. The new female student wrote her name on the whiteboard. Hello, I'm Sakura Haruno. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I hope we get along well this year, the pink-hair student bowed courteously. Though the pink hair definitely stood out, what the class noticed was her distinctively large forehead. Recognizing the stares she received, Sakura sighed. Prejudice was everywhere she went, but one boy wasn't looking. Instead, the brown hair guy was head deep into whatever book he was reading. Sakura noticed some female students groaned out of dismay. She deduced that they were waiting for Sasuke, but the administration assigned him to another second-year class. Please take the empty seat, the teacher pointed out the empty seat which was right behind the boy reading the book. Nodding, Sakura took her seat. Throughout the whole homeroom, the boy never acknowledged her presence. Thank you for coming, a bespectacled young, slim woman greeted the redhead she called for personally. Sona Shitori, or Citri, styled her black hair in a short bob cut and had violet eyes. The hairstyle, glasses, and posture conveyed a regal presence around her. Standing next to her was Tsubaki Shinra. Though Tsubaki also wore glasses and had black hair, her semi-rimmed, square spectacle frame and long knee-length hair differentiated her from her king. Together, Sona and Tsubaki were the student council's president and vice president respectively. It's not like you to contact me personally unless something important. What's going on? Rias graciously drank the warm tea Tsubaki placed for her. I believe we have an intruder in our territory, Sona went straight to the point. Normally, something like a stray devil would not cause concern, but I don't think we're dealing with a stray devil or fallen angel. Sona pulled out 2 student files and placed them in front of Rias. The redhead looked at who the fields belonged to, Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. This new guy. Sasuke Uchiha, Akino and I accidentally bumped into him this morning. I also agree with your suspicions, Rias said her finished tea which Tsubaki immediately removed. If you were a normal human, I would have felt his presence, but I felt nothing. There was nothing around him, as if you were air. He must be skilled to completely cover his presence like this. You also suspect this girl, Sakura Haruno. Yes. According to their files, the two came from the same hometown and school before transferring to Kuo Academy. However, this is the disturbing part. Tsubaki and I do not recall ever processing these two. Sona relayed this bit of information that had Rias curious. Sona was normally on top of everything, and if she were not, Tsubaki would pick up the slack. Even though your elder brother is the academy's administrator, the student council coordinates with admissions and registration to determine who are accepted into this school, including transfers. Procedures are processed at minimum in a week. Admissions and registration accepted these two immediately without discussing anything with me. When I asked them what had happened, the admissions staff could not remember. I don't remember ever writing my signature on these forms either. It's almost as if admissions and the student council were under an illusion, Rias finished her childhood friend's thought. She narrowed her eyes. Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno were able to slip underneath both their noses. These two duped the heirs to the Grimorian Citri clan. What is their purpose? That, I do not know. Neither do I have the evidence to convict them of trespassing, Sona groans. Does my brother or your sister know? I don't think so. These two were admitted so fast that probably the news has yet reached the underworld. If anything, Uchiha and Haruno don't seem to be the main culprit, but just lackeys, and the mastermind, if there is one, is not aware of our statuses as devils. Maybe this is a simple recon. Sona's keen mind immediately bypasses improbable scenarios and picks the best fit. However, we never can be too cautious. Rias, may your peerage and you keep watch over these two. The student council will look further into their agenda. Sounds like a plan. Rias was about to take her leave before another topic came up in her head. There's someone else I suspect. My rook, Kaneko, while she tailed the student Issei Hyodo, suspected to possess a sacred gear, saw Issei interacting with an elderly individual. However, much like Uchiha and Haruno, this man also removed his presence entirely. That is an issue, but we know information regarding this person. For now, Sona concluded, we'll continue with our plan. You may take your leave. See ya soon. Rias waves goodbye.
Issei Hyodo ran as fast as
Possible to reach the designated location where he was supposed to be his new mentor. Luckily, he noticed the time and left school instead of sticking around with Mitsuda and Motohama. However, instead of the local park fountain, Jiraiya changed the rendezvous to the local recreation center. Also, he notified Issei to bring his gym clothes. When he arrived, Issei found the older man at the quarter-mile elliptical track course. Letting his mind stray, Issei noticed female joggers wearing nothing but sports bras and shorts. His eyes followed their every movement and slight jiggle as they ran around the track. I see you're already adept at focusing on the female form, Jiraiya commented. Immediately, Issei turned his direct attention to the older man. He didn't even notice Jiraiya sneaking up behind him. Wasn't he all the way over there a second ago? Laughing off the abrupt change in mood, Jiraiya patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. We'll get to those sorts of things later. First we need to train. Jiraiya pointed at the running track in front of them. Mr. Jiraiya, may I ask why?
Issei hesitantly questioned his mentor's methodology.
What's the point to this? Aren't they writing books? The job world requires long hours of weary and time-consuming work. If you're going to work alongside me, we have to prepare you for sleepless nights to make deadlines and such. Now, that may not apply to the position I offered you, but you may not always be my assistant. One day, sooner rather than later, you'll be on the job market and work some underpaid job extending way past the 9-to-5 workday.
Issei, do you know what the word
shinobi stands for? Jiraiya, after ranting his long spew of the adult world from which Issei is only 1 year from, asked him a peculiar question. No, Issei rubbed the back of his head in slight embarrassment. Shinobi has the same kanji as endure, Jiraiya answered. Shinobi are those who endure, no matter what obstacles may lay ahead of them. Tell me, what's your dream? Well, Issei was at a loss of words from the sudden change in conversation. Aside from touching a woman's boobs before dying and forming a harem, I haven't really thought about it.
Issei reflected on his life so far.
Growing up in a single-child household with a working father and stay-at-home mother, he hadn't have true hardship in his life so far. Where I come from, Jiraiya started, but Issei noticed a faraway look in his eyes. A person far wiser and smarter than I told my friend, shinobi are people who endure to achieve their goals, but depending on what they choose as their goal, they change. So Issei, what does all that mean to you? Your goal, at minimum, is to one day have a girlfriend, judging from your response earlier. That's a nice goal for the short term, or long term depending on how your future relationship goes. However, I wonder how you'll change when you finally land a special one. Issei finally found a moment to interrupt Jiraiya's rant. Did you say your friend was a shinobi? Where the hell did you come from? Do ninjas still exist? That is a story for another time. I'll tell you one day, but for now, Jiraiya pulled out another book from his pocket. It's time to train. If you do well today, I may just let you have a peek at the rough draft of the third book in the Makeout series. The author dangled the prized item in front of the star-eyed teenager. No way, there's a third book. Issei, spellbound by the book tantalizingly hanging before him, immediately started warming up for whatever trials Jiraiya may put him through. That's the spirit. Jiraiya chuckled at his assistant's sudden enthusiasm. However, how about you bring over your friend? Jiraiya pointed towards the dark, open entrance.
Issei, unaware of the other
person, looked at that direction as well. From the shadows came a petite, young Kuo Academy student sporting the standard female attire. The adolescent had hazel eyes and white hair with 2 long bangs growing past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back had a short bob cut. Issei knew who this person, Kaneko Tuju. Aside from Rias and Akino, the top Kuo Academy idols, Kaneko is quite popular amongst certain groups of guys, and amongst girls, she's treated as a mascot for her childishly cute face and small body. Though beyond the cute factor, she's rather emotionless beneath. Well, introduce me to your cute friend here, Jiraiya patted Issei on the shoulder. This prompted Issei to stand upright and gentlemanly mediate between the two. Jiraiya-sensei, this is Kaneko Tuju. She's a first-year student at the school I go to, Issei answered. Said student bowed courteously before the older man. Nice to meet you, Jiraiya extended his right hand. The little girl gripped the much larger hand compared to her petite one. Instantly, Jiraiya felt strength that exceeded what he expected from her small frame. Slightly narrowing her eyes, Kaneko noticed that this man was not reacting to the amount of force she's exerting. Likewise, Mr. Jiraiya, Kaneko responded with her small voice. How about it? Want to run with us? Jiraiya offered the petite woman. This boy here could use a bit of encouragement, if you know what I mean. Pervert, Kaneko flat out called the older man. To this, Jiraiya laughed aloud. Oh, I'm not just any pervert, a lecherous grin spread across his face. I'm a super pervert. Jiraiya's hands wiggled suggestively as if they were groping a non-existent woman. I'm leaving, Kaneko immediately hightailed out and away from potential stranger danger. Damn you, Jiraiya-sensei. Issei punched him in the arm. Why did you have to do that? The Kaneko Tuju was right here next to me. Why did you scare her away with your perverted tendencies? Lighten up, kid. It's not like you were going to score with her anyhow. If I was not here, Kaneko would have fled from you upon first sight. Jiraiya crossed his arms in a half-hearted attempt to dismiss the event. However, she seemed to be following Issei, and not for relationship purposes. Does she also sense the unusual power coming from Issei? Why is she interested in his potential abilities? Is she working on her own, or for someone else? Hopefully Sasuke and Sakura can find out since they are at school with her. Jiraiya silently examined the situation in his head and not alarm the adolescent assistant. Damn, Issei, no, Jiraiya was most likely correct, sighed. Well, are we starting or what? I want to know what happens after makeout violence. Ho, you finished the second book in less than a day. With that diligence, you should be at the top of your class. Jiraiya's ego went further up past the atmosphere and into space. Well, about that, Issei sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. His grades are far from the top. He only passed the entrance exam to get into Kuo Academy because of the number of girls at the school. Other than that, he's average academically. Anyhow, let's begin. The old school building, listed as one of the 7 wonders of school, at Kuo Academy, stood silently amongst the trees shadowing the wooden walls. In a room located inside, president of the Occult Research Club, Rias Grimori, and her queen, Akano Himejima, prepared to listen to Koneko's report on Issei and any progress on his sacred gear. According to her rook, Issei was training with the enigmatic man, named Jiraiya, for some unknown reason. Was this Jiraiya part of another faction? Was he a devil or fallen angel seeking Issei's sacred gear? From Kaneko, Jiraiya, at minimum, possessed strength superior to that of a normal human. However, like before, Kaneko felt nothing from Jiraiya that indicated he belonged to any known race or faction. This is unsettling, Rias leaned back into her chair. We still have no clues to their objectives. The only thing we know is that they are interested in Issei's sacred gear, as we are. My, oh my, what should we do about them? Akano smiled sweetly, and yet behind those loving eyes held an extraordinary amount of lust, and not in a sexual connotation. Lightning slowly crackled from her fingertips. We can't take action in that manner since we have no evidence. Sona said that she's looking further into the matter. Even though it's only been less than 24 hours, Sona normally would have something more substantial. So far, we know nothing about Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno aside from their previous hometown, school, and family background. Even then, she and I are suspecting forgery amongst these documents. Jiraiya, surprisingly lacks a surname, is the author of the highly awarded Makeout Paradise, an adult novel. Rias read off a report Sona sent to her in the morning. Aside from Jiraiya's background in writing, nothing else of use was discovered. Birds of a feather flock together, Kaneko blandly commented before sipping her tea. Obviously, she referred to Jiraiya's and Issei's perverted tendencies. We can tell these three are not human, but what race or faction do they belong to? Kaneko, you're sure you didn't feel anything when you physically shook this man's hand? Rias asked her rook once more. To that question, Kaneko slightly stiffened. That man, Jiraiya, is most definitely human. I think the reason we didn't feel any aura or presence from him is because we are viewing the situation in the wrong perspective. Though I cannot confirm, I think the man uses chakra. Kaneko, with a slight quiver in her tone, stated her opinion. Rias and Akano were both astonished by this revelation. Far-fetched as it may be, Rias began, all living creatures possess energy necessary to live life force. As you know firsthand Kaneko, this energy comes from the combination of spiritual energy and physical energy to generate chakra. Though not potent as demonic energy or magic, chakra, as seen in martial artists, can be a powerful weapon. However, do you think this man may be able to? Before Rias could complete her question, she noticed the pained look in her rook's eyes. Both Rias and Akino knew of Koneko's sister. It was only because of her older brother, Searzex, that Kaneko was still alive after her sister killed their former devil master and went rogue. This event traumatized the young yokai and left her near emotionless. I'll confirm this on my own, Kaneko declared with more vigor in her voice than she normally used. If Jiraiya can really use senjutsu and not lose himself to mania, maybe there's hope for her. You sure you can handle this? Rias, concerned, asked her rook for confirmation. We don't know his agenda, strength, or abilities. I can send Kiba with you. It's alright, Kaneko held up her palm, indicating Rias to stop. If Jiraiya is related to my sister at all, it's my responsibility to handle this. Okay, Rias allowed, continue your surveillance over Issei Hyodo and Jiraiya. Akino and I will watch over Uchiha and Haruno. Just be sure to summon us if something goes wrong, okay? The king gently asked her servant. Kaneko nodded, and the meeting adjourned. Saturday morning, Issei felt like putty, his legs were about to give out at any second. Who the hell wakes up at 5 a.m. in the morning via a bucket of cold water? Jiraiya sensei even persuaded Issei's parents to let him take Issei under his apprenticeship. His parents were too gullible at times. Seriously, I knew I lounged around all day, ate, slept, looked at manga, hentai, surfed the web for hentai, and even exercised, masturbate. Okay, so I basically described myself as a neat but even so. A modern kid living in a city was not built for this sort of work. Jiraiya made me run how many laps around the track until the sun set. I'm pretty sure he had to carry me home. He's going to do who knows what to me today. Since the recreational center was not open this early in the morning, Jiraiya ordered me to meet at the park. Today, we're going to run around park until the sun rises as our warm-up. Jiraiya said with a huge grin on his face.
Issei's mouth dropped
Wide open. You're crazy old man.
Issei shouted and
Pointed his finger. You said that I'll need this conditioning to handle my position as your apprentice in adulthood, but I see no point to this. My body feels like jelly, never smelled worse in my entire life from sweat, had no time to fulfill my perverted desires yesterday, and worst of all, you didn't even let me look at makeout tactics. I've had enough. Damn, you're such whiny bitch, Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head. Look kid, if you didn't want to be here, you wouldn't have woken up and meet me in person. Your conscience compelled you to come. If you weren't here, what would you be doing? Sleeping. Jacking off. A voice in your head is telling you that you can be better than a bum sitting in front of the computer screen. Your entire life so far, you had have been a dependent child. It's your choice now, continue as a child and jack off, or be an adult and become a contributing member of society, Jiraiya stated in a stern tone. What Jiraiya said really resonated within Issei. If he didn't want to come, he wouldn't have woken up in the first place. It may be only the second day of training, but he already felt a difference in his body. Maybe because this was the first time he did any form of strenuous exercise, but he noticed he lost some unnecessary fat. Sure, Issei's a skinny adolescent, but 17 years lack of exercise left him flappy. Another benefit is the allure of apprenticeship under Jiraiya, author of the Makeout series. As an immature child, Issei realized that it'll take time and effort to gain Jiraiya's complete trust to help handle the writing process. Again, it's barely the second day, and Jiraiya only let Issei read the unreleased second book, Makeout Violence, to apologize for ratting him out. Taking in a deep breath, Issei calmed down. Okay, I'll go along with whatever form of torture you deem necessary, Issei sighed as he resigned to his fate. Jiraiya nodded. The two began jogging in the twilight hours. Slowly but surely, the early morning sky brightened until the dawn arrived. Jogging for about an hour, Issei decided to take a much-needed break at the park fountain. Hanging his head high, he gulped down large volumes of air. Even a light jog tired him out. Just then, Jiraiya arrived with 2 water bottles and handed one to him.
Issei immediately drank half.
With a satisfied gasp, he finished the bottle in no time. Other morning joggers began their routes. The two pervs for several minutes observed females running in sport bras and short shorts. For a brat, you did well this morning to keep up with me, Jiraiya broke the silence as he took another sip. I was a bit harsh earlier, but that's because my previous student took everything I threw at him and weathered the storm. Maybe I was a bit naive to believe you would respond the same way to training as he did. You reminded me a bit of my previous student, in that you're almost the complete opposite to him. Really?
Issei asked curiously.
Who was this student? He was the number one hyperactive, unpredictable knucklehead. All throughout his life, he was considered the dead last. He constantly failed at everything he did. You remind me a lot of him, but there's one thing he had that you don't, Jiraiya explained. And that would be guts, Jiraiya stated bluntly, the guts to never give up, that's what he had. His motto, I'll never give up and never go back on my word. No matter what obstacle laid before him, he ran up the mountain and climbed to the top every time. Not once I saw him cry. He probably had no more tears to cry when I first met him. What does that mean?
Issei asked, knowing something bad occurred.
That is a story for another time, but my message is this: never give up. Never go back on your word. If you make a promise, find a way to keep it. Stand up no matter what may lie ahead of you. One day, you'll reach your dream. Find a woman willing to let you grope her. Gather a harem. Well, that's enough for now. Go back home and eat breakfast, take a shower, and meet me at the recreational center, Jiraiya commanded. Yes, sir.
Issei nodded and headed home.
Unbeknownst to him, there was someone else spying on them. Now then, are you done stalking your prey, little kitty? Jiraiya called out once Issei was out of sight. From behind a tree, Kaneko revealed herself. As suspected, you are more than a normal human, Kaneko confirmed her suspicion. No human could have detected her presence and locate her a second time. I can say the same to you. So, what faction do you belong to? Jiraiya questioned. The atmosphere around him quickly intensified, even Kaneko felt the weight upon her shoulders. I have come for diplomacy on behalf of the House of Grimoire, Kaneko, hoping her stunt would pay off, responded. House of Grimoire? Jiraiya questioned. They are not affiliated with the Chaos Brigade as far as I know. The House of Grimoire and Citri are the governing bodies in this area. I guess the heiresses saw through my charade to a degree. I'm also guessing they suspect Sasuke and Sakura. The two, Rias and Sona, and are stronger than I first assessed. Jiraiya mentally analyzed the situation before him. Now, he can either come forward, or work around the current situation. What does the House of Grimoire want with me? What are your current objectives? What are your plans regarding Issei Hyodo? What is your relation with Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno? Kaneko emotionlessly interrogated the older man. Can't answer, he's a pervert just like me, and I don't know a Sasuke Uchiha, or Sakura Haruno, Jiraiya answered in order respective to her question, but really didn't answer anything and outright lied. Fine, Kaneko realized she wasn't going to get a straight answer from this man. How are you able to use chakra? Can you utilize senjutsu? To her questions, Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Unlike her previous questions, there was a small quiver in her voice. There was some bad blood with senjutsu in her past. Mastering the sage arts, Jiraiya knew the dangers of undergoing sage training. Perhaps a relative of hers failed at the sage arts and suffered the consequences. Yes, I'm the Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya, surprising Kaneko, answered directly. I'm a master of the sage arts, and fully utilize chakra and senjutsu. Then, Kaneko whimpered, how do you not fall to the madness of the world? Senjutsu users absorb the natural energy of your surroundings, but also take in the world's malice. The madness drives users to insanity. Her eyes and voice expressed great pain underneath her emotionless mask. Hold out your fist, Jiraiya extended his right fist. Cautiously, the adolescent connected hers. Closing his eyes, Jiraiya took in a deep breath, and after a few moments, he released the link with her. I understand. Meet me tomorrow morning. I'll help you understand senjutsu and reconcile your past. Kaneko, extremely confused, was at a loss for words for a bit. Okay, but it'll be at a location I choose, the old school building at Kuo Academy. The school Issei and you go to. Is it open on the weekends? Never mind, I'm sure you have your reasons. Want your allies to keep an eye on an old man like me. Pretty smart for a youngster, so I'll play your game. See ya tomorrow. I have to finish dealing with Issei later today. With that, Jiraiya took his leave. A bewildered Kaneko silently watched him disappear in a whirlwind of leaves. Hours later, after putting Issei through the gauntlet, Jiraiya let him return home to rest. Because he's meeting with Kaneko, Jiraiya cancelled his rendezvous with Issei on Sunday. Late Saturday night, Jiraiya sat alone at a rundown ramen shop. Waiting for his order, he mused about the situation the young Kaneko went through. The hardships because her own flesh and blood cursed her with were difficult for any child to endure. Remedying such a case will be difficult. After 10 minutes passed, the waitress served his meal. Before he could dig in, another presence made itself known. Geez, just when I was about to enjoy my first bowl of ramen. Couldn't you have come by after I finished eating? Jiraiya groaned. Still enjoy ramen. Should I even ask the question? Said person took the seat across from him. In this empty shop, they were the only customers. So, still tailing me, Aophis. Jiraiya eyed the little gothic Lolita sitting across from him. I'm surprised you wear such a disguise. Why not show your true self, Naruto Uzumaki? At an undisclosed location, the direct descendant of the original Lucifer, Rizvam Levon Lucifer, sat bored at the world. He, one of the three super devils, had lost sight of himself and lived a rather unfulfilled life. A devil, with such a long lifespan, can oftentimes lose their sense of purpose. However, a recent revelation came upon him. Euclid Lucifuge, the long-lost younger brother of Graphia Lucifuge, recently came into contact with a most interesting individual. Said individual was to arrive soon. So, you're an original Lucifer, a voice spoke from out of nowhere. Even Rizvam was startled. Something got the jump on him, and he didn't even feel a presence. Interesting, this is very interesting, a wicked smile spread across his face. To think I, Rizvam Lucifer, would not detect your presence. You're no devil, fallen angel, or any race I'm familiar with. What are you? I'm just a lonely messenger carrying out my master's will. A shadowy, dark figure slithered out of the shadows from within Lucifer's chambers. This shadow had a humanoid body, but only half a head and one red eye. This red eye immediately grabbed Rizvam's attention. What kind of eye had concentric circles radiating from the pupil in Magatama? How about I tell you about a world outside the realm of the gods? October 10, 5 months ago. At the Grigori Research Institute, fallen angel scientists scrambled due to an unexpected development. Alarm sirens rang off everywhere. Large energy readings in the dimensional gap overloaded all sensors and threw everyone into frenzy. Finally, Shemhazai, Vice Governor General of the Fallen Angels, stabilized visual connection with the dimensional gap, and what they saw was beyond anyone's imaginations. Great Red, the legendary and most powerful of all dragons, was thrown around like a rag doll. Once other instruments came back online, better visual resolution confirmed other readings in the dimensional gap. The culprit appeared to be a pale-skinned woman with extremely long, light-colored hair, two protrusions sticking out from her forehead, and wore kimono detailed with intricate lines and tomo running down the center and edges of her gown. Suddenly, someone else knocked away the woman. The new figure, with spiky blonde hair, a high-neck collar, flaming red-yellow robe tied with an obi around his waist, and 9 Magatama 3x3 markings on the kimono's back. 6 black spheres hovered behind him like a halo, and his right hand held a staff. For a fraction of a second, the two figures were visible, but in an instant, all monitors lost track of the two. The fallen angel scientists were only able to record clashes between the two. Each time the two made contact, the dimensional gap collapsed further. Great Red was not faring much better. The large dragon appeared to be fighting something invisible which even did not appear on any measuring instrument, yet whatever it was, it certainly put the Great Red on the ropes. It was apparent, however, that if this battle continued on without intervention, all known worlds, heaven, human, and the underworld were in grave peril. Someone contact Sirzex and Michael. Shemhazai ordered. Where the hell is Azazel? Sir. We have made contact with both the Devil Lord and Seraph. Penemu, Chief Secretary, shortly established connection to the other two factions. Though, most likely the other two had the same idea as the fallen angels. 2 magical circles appeared before Shemhazai and projected holograms of Michael and Sirzex. I can't say this is a good welcome since the world as we know may be coming to an end, Sirzex Grimoire, titled Lucifer, greeted grimly. The angels in heaven are keeping the dimensional barrier between worlds stabilized, but if this continues any further, the human world will surely get drawn into this as well, Michael, Archangel and leader of the Seraph, reported. You have our full support. The Grigori Institute will aid in your endeavor, Shemhazai immediately announced. We, devils, will assist as well, Sirzex chimed in. To think such an event was necessary to join the 3 great powers together, even temporarily. The last time this happened was when the 2 heavenly dragons clashed. Though, this event is far beyond that fight. Without God or the former 4 Satan lords, I don't think sending the armies of all 3 great powers will make a difference, Michael solemnly concluded. All we can do is hope that we can contain the fallout, whatever that may be. Suddenly, a major event turned the tide of the battle. As all 3 leaders witnessed, Great Red shrunk down and enveloped one of the figures in red armor. The dragon transformed into armor and combined with the fiery, blonde entity. As seen in the past, sacred gears made from dragons had scale-male balance breakers. Whatever the reason for such a combination may be, it certainly turned the battle against the female entity. The now armored dragon warrior, with a single stroke of his staff, launched a powerful wave radiating from him. The invisible entities dispersed from that single stroke of his staff. Even the woman was shocked at his power. The armored warrior formed an unusual symbol with his hands. Out of nowhere, an entire army of dragon warriors exploded into existence. This seemingly simple act instilled great dread into the three leaders. If one unknown individual can easily become an army comparable to the full strength of any of the three powers, the very balance of their entire world could shift. Yet they were unable to stop him if the situation were to arise. Acting as one, the army charged straight at their single opponent. In response, she spun clockwise at incalculable speeds which knocked a large number away. While spinning, she released innumerable spears which appeared to be made of bone precisely at her targets. A large smoke cloud ensued as many fell to the attack. However, using the smoke as cover, the remaining ones threw black spears right at the epicenter. Once again, she was forced to spin, but instead of bone, she unleashed wave after wave of refined wind that sliced through the army. As the conflict dragged on, the further the dimensional barrier fell. Various colors spewed from each collision as if a supernova just exploded. The ground and rocks broke apart and floated within the vast nothingness. The barrier separating heaven and hell fragmented and hovered in space as the two continued their extraordinary clash. Angels, fallen angels, and devils clamored to maintain any sort of stability under the given circumstances. In what appeared to be another strategy, the remains of the army spewed pink liquid right at the spinning sphere. Although the air blades sliced through the liquid, they did not change its chemical composition. Slowly the liquid coagulated into a sticky substance and swirled with the sphere. Surely, the liquid suppressed her movement and paralyzed her. However, the liquid quickly was sucked into her as if via absorption. Holding up her right hand, an unseen force radiated outwards and knocked out the rest of the army. From the smoke came an enormous lava ball. Instead of absorbing it, she evaded the incoming ball of molten rock. It collided with the dimensional barrier and broke through. The underworld's sky lit up in brilliant flames. Serzetch's connection with the fallen angels shortly cut off before re-establishing the link. Instantaneous movement allowed the female to dodge that city-wide fireball, but led right into another trap. Meeting her were two more armored warriors. The lava ball was a distraction to replenish that army. In response, the female threw up both palms, one facing each of the two. The same unseen force as before blew everyone away. Reading their graphs and instruments, the fallen angels at the Grigori Institute discovered that the culprit was gravity. She had control over gravity itself. No known sacred gear possessed such ability. The trap was a cover for an even more elaborate trap. When the army burst, instead of smoke, the armored soldiers erupted in orange-yellow glitter. The sparkles illuminated intensely and blinded not only the spectators, but the opposing female as well. After the light show faded, the visible portion of the dimensional gap was clouded with some type of gas. According to the instruments, the fallen angel scientists concluded it was water vapor, steam. However, this steam was not ordinary, it fried all sensors. It was to hinder the enemy's sensing abilities and restrict her movements. Whoever this warrior was, his cunning mind came up with so many varying strategies to throw the opponent off guard. If he were to battle against any of the great mythological powers with his strength and techniques. Soon, the female dispersed the steam with her gravity technique. However, once the vapors went away, small animal-shaped, fiery blue creatures pounced on her. Each clawed, scratched, nipped, bit, and slashed at her body. Though the attacks seemed to be in vain due to her impressive regeneration, strange letters and markings appeared all over her body. Quickly, the markings spread all over. If anything, the symbols looked very similar to Oriental characters, but different at the same time. The effect was instantaneous, she was restricted. The Grigori Institute deduced it was a seal, similar to magical seals magicians used. Unlike demonic energy and techniques, magic was formulaic and full of equations. Sensors suddenly went off and even overloaded. Something was building massive energy. Looking through visuals, they noticed the armored warrior had two balls of energy in his hand, the left hand entirely covered with purple lightning, and the right holding a tan sphere with unusual black markings. In an instant, he was upon the female and smashed the two objects into her. Screaming from what appeared to be excruciating pain, she was engulfed by the black markings until they enveloped her entire body. The man crushed her sealed body into a tiny sphere. With a clap of his hands and charging stance, he yelled at the top of his lungs. Large chunks of debris, rocks, and fragments from the barrier broke off and congregated around the sphere. Slowly, they coalesced into an ever-growing spherical rock. The fallen angels, devils, and angels stood in awe as the rock grew to monstrous proportions, as if a small planet was to be born. However, the growing mass cracked. 10 arm-like appendages broke out of the rocky prison, and soon after, a weird, deformed head emerged. Its deafening roar shattered decibel meters at the Grigori Institute. The Cyclops-like humanoid creature of titanic proportions freed itself from the seals and cage. In size comparison, it made even Great Red seem tiny. Large, spiky protrusions jutting out from its head, one mouth, ear, and a single, red eye with concentric rings radiating from the pupil and tomo, the monstrosity lunged at the much smaller armored warrior. Instead of evading the enormous creature, he charged head-on and punched the monster's face. The force actually flipped it onto its back, and the resulting impact further broke the dimensional barrier. Even the spectators felt the landing. Its 10 arm-like appendages morphed into dragon-shaped heads, and each one started charging enormous black spheres. All 10 locked onto their target. The armored one used the 6 spheres hovering behind him to form an enormous shield. 10 immense black beams collided with the shield and exploded upon impact. Readings indicated the blast had enough force to take out a chunk of Eurasia. Suddenly, out of the smoke, Great Red, no longer in armor form, attacked the 12-armed creature. An all-out monster brawl ensured where the two traded enormous energy blasts and melee attacks. Any stray shots broke through the barrier and blasted heaven and hell. Michael, Sirzex, and Shemhazai felt their world under siege from these attacks. Though Great Red was much smaller, its speed allowed it race around the monster's torso and incinerate the one-eyed creature's hide. In response, the one-eyed monstrosity shed any brunt skin and immediately regenerated the missing flesh. Then, numerous hands erupting from the monster's skin constricted Great Red's limbs, body, wings, and month. Unable to move or launch an attack, the red dragon was a sitting duck as the 12-armed monster charged a large black sphere aimed straight at him. 10 unarmored blonde warriors cut through the limbs and knocked the grotesque creature off its feet. The blonde warrior landed on Great Red's head. A bright yellow light enveloped Great Red. One scaly, dragon tail split into 9 free-flowing yellow tails. The light covered the dragon's entire body, but then a purple, ethereal light erupted from the yellow and formed another layer on top. This purple substance took shape, and this time, the dragon was wearing a Japanese samurai stylized armor. The newly formed armor added 3 pairs of arms onto the armless dragon and additional masks adorning each cheek. In one of its left hands held a giant black double helix sword, and in a right hand held an enormous shield. Regenerating its limbs, the other creature stood up and stared down with its singular red eye at the newly armored dragon. Simultaneously roaring at one another, the two charged head-on. 5 hands morphed into dragon heads again and fired every element, fire, water, wind, earth, and lightning, in concentrated beams. Great Red protected itself with the new shield and tackled the 12-armed creature to the ground. With a powerful gravitational repulsion, the 10-tailed monster blew away the dragon. Regaining its footing, the dragon fired an enormous fireball, one larger than the lava ball earlier. The 10 appendages wrapped around and shielded the main body from the brunt of the attack. While the battle ensued, the 3 great powers watched on as an event of biblical proportions, equal to that described in the Book of Revelations, played out. The barrier was not lasting well, and if the fighting lasted any longer, the human world would surely get drawn into it. Each power was using all their resources just to hold up the barrier. Building upon momentum, armored Great Red rushed in once more. Inside those 9 tails, spiraling spheres formed that lead the charge. The spheres made contact and cracked a small opening in the 12-armed creature's defense. Piercing through the armed defense, Great Red rammed the double helix sword straight through its chest and emerged out the other end. The 9 tails seemed to connect to the creature's innards and began pulled. The blonde one leapt off Great Red and landed on the other beast. Holding a ball of yellow energy in his right and a purple ball in his left, he slammed the 2 into the 12-armed monster's head. Suddenly, the creature underwent a dramatic change. It shrunk drastically, shriveled until it was like a skeleton, and the gigantic red eye closed. What replaced it was an earthen-colored humanoid statue with a blindfold wrapped around its eyes. Its back had spike-like protrusions where its 10 arms once were, and handcuffs bound its wrists and ankles. Clapping his hands once more, the blonde one attempted to seal off the creature again. The fallen debris, rock, and barrier fragments quickly congealed together and formed an even larger ball to imprison the humanoid statue. Black markings ran across the entire sphere and completed the seal. Just as how suddenly the fight began, it came to an abrupt end. A giant, perfectly spherical rock hung menacingly in the collapsing dimensional gap. Wobbling, the victor passed out immediately. Great Red, with its head, caught the unconscious individual as the warrior's power faded away. All units continue to stabilize the dimension, Shemhazai ordered. I'm going to retrieve that being myself. The Vice-Governor-General of the Fallen Angels immediately cut communications with the angels and devils as soon as the battle was over. He would bet anything that the other two powers had the same idea as he. If that being, greater than the gods themselves, really died, then whatever information the body could glean would be a gold mine. Shemhazai had to work fast and discreetly since the true dragon, Great Red, held his body. The Vice-Governor-General opened a gate to the dimensional gap. He'll have to be quick because even he will succumb to the nothingness inside the gap. Once inside, he traced angel and devil signals. His intuition was correct, so he had to hasten his mission. Where was the Governor-General of the Fallen Angels when you needed him? However, by the time, Gabriel and Graphia, the representatives angels and devils respectively, and he arrived, another figure intervened. She was a small human child wearing gothic Lolita-style attire. Simply covering her chest with two X-shaped black markings over her nipples, long black hair reaching down to her hips and gray irises, skin pale as the moon, cold gray eyes, the little girl levitated the unconscious man's body. Great Red allowing the little girl to come close and retrieve the body surprised all three powers. The initial plan for each of the great powers was to observe Great Red's actions and see if any one of them could retrieve the body for their own side to study. The appearance of this child completely changed everything. Just as quickly as she appeared, she disappeared with the body. 3 months later, the older, gray-haired man sat across the table from a little girl wearing gothic Lolita clothing. Great, just as oblivious as usual, she blew his cover. Luckily, the store owner was the only other occupant in this rundown ramen shop and not paying them any attention. Instead, he was preparing to close up shop. Food slowly growing cold, he decided to continue the conversation. So, still tailing me, Aophis. Naruto, under the guise of Jiraiya, groaned a bit. He really wanted to eat. I am surprised you wear such a disguise. You, show your true self, Naruto Uzumaki, the little girl revealed as Ophis, the infinite dragon god, ordered. As though like an innocent doll, Ophis stared at him as if he were going to concede to her whim. Man, still treating me like some kind of pet. I know I have whisker birthmarks, but I'm not some stray dog you picked up off the street. I'd rather play catch, Naruto admonished critically. Still transformed as his former, deceased master, Naruto quickly downed the ramen before ordering 1 bowl and sweetened iced tea for his visitor, and a second for himself. Catch, I would like that, Ophis commented. I want to kill Great Red more. Though indescribably smaller, there was a small light shining her dull eyes. Yes, I know, Naruto sighed. Yet again, like a child, Ophis made her point known that she wanted to go home and obtain silence. Still unable to get through her thick skull, he scratched the back of his head. Unfortunately, I can't agree to that request. Great Red is doing something very, very important for me. Killing him is not in my best interest. You and we can defeat Great Red, Ophis continued on nonchalantly. At least she was consistent. Naruto had not seen the infinite dragon god's true form or power, but from what he'd heard, this little girl could give the Sage of Six Paths, Hagamoro Otsutsuki, a run for his money. The new orders arrived in a timely fashion. This is the first ramen restaurant since Naruto had been in Japan. 2 days ago Thursday, Naruto just arrived in Japan, and his time with Issei deprived him of ramen. To fulfill his addiction, he will binge on ramen until his stomach could no longer hold any more. Tomorrow, this store will be devoid of ramen. Ophis, whose ramen and sweetened iced tea were set before her, silently ate her meal. Even though she could be rudely truthful at times, at least she had table manners. After finishing the salty noodle soup, Ophis quietly drank her sweetened iced tea through a straw. Naruto remembered that she really liked sweets. Look, it's getting late, and I want some shut-eye. I don't think you'll go back to them anytime soon. I'll let you stay for a bit. Naruto motioned Ophis to follow him. If she hadn't shown up, he would have eaten this shop clean of ramen, but as the responsible adult, he had to make sure this kid got a good night's rest. Walking through the park side by side, Naruto and Ophis silently headed to wherever Naruto stayed in Japan. Under the moonlight, the trees cast an eerie shadow on the concrete path. Looking at the little girl next to him, Naruto wondered what was he going to do with a dragon god. He left her with his first assistant the last time and hoped that she would have hidden herself forever, but apparently her drive to oust Great Red led her here. For now, he was tired and wanted rest. They arrived at an old apartment complex in the inner city. The close proximity of neighboring buildings reminded Naruto of home. Going up the stairs, Naruto led Office to his apartment. Much like his old one, it had a terrace from which he could look out and see the city. Inside, the studio was more Western than Japanese. A single bed, small kitchen, bathroom, closet. Naruto had yet to furnish the room with other commodities such as cupboards full of instant cup of noodles. I'm going to take a bath. You can hang around and do what you want, Naruto stretched before going into the bathroom. Office, not wearing footwear, walked in barefoot. She looked at the rather empty room. The only place to sit was the bed, so she took a seat. It was no different than her room, blank walls and a single stool upon she sat back with the Chaos Brigade. With their promise of Great Red's death, she granted brigade members' wishes with her snakes and sat alone in the room until that fateful day. October 10th, she found an entity which had the capacity to defeat Great Red. Taking her chances, she went into the dimensional gap to retrieve the person. Great Red did not seem to care all that much. While she reminisced, the blonde had removed the transformation and came out of the bathroom with regular clothing. Instead of the usual jumpsuit, Naruto wore an orange, sleeveless plain jersey, black short-sleeved undershirt, orange sweats, and slippers. I should really thank my last assistant, Naruto commented while drying his blonde, spiky hair with a towel. She really knew how to make the most of a sale. I guess that's why she's the 99 Valkyrie. Naruto smiled. Even with the income and royalties from Makeout Paradise, the book was still only a month old. Much like home, sometimes it was tough to make ends meet. If Naruto hadn't met his assistant, he probably would be destitute, more so than he is now. The blonde adolescent looked over to the small Lolita seating on his bed. Like always, the great dragon god was quiet as a mouse. Here, Naruto made a Rasengan. You wanted to play catch, right? He tossed the spiraling sphere to the little girl. Like several times they've done in the past, the two tossed the sphere back and forth to each other. Strange how something so simple could be so gratifying for a dragon god. Until out of nowhere, Office threw the Rasengan out the window. Why did you do that? Naruto accusingly pointed his finger at the gothic Lolita. I grew bored of catch. You, go, fetch, Office obliviously replied. Her unemotional face belied the fact that she found nothing wrong with what she just did. He was her pet, and pets go fetch. I'm not your freaking pet. Naruto reiterated once again, but the message seemed to never register with Office. The lights went out suddenly, and a loud explosion shortly followed the Rasengan's toss out the window. Shit, Naruto cussed. Peeping out the window, he saw the destruction his Rasengan caused. The force knocked a car into a line of parked cars which crashed into an electrical pole and knocked out power for the entire block. Hopefully no one got hurt. We saw and did nothing, got it? Naruto whispered to Office, nodding. Alright then, since you, obviously, did not throw that out the window and took out the power, it's time to get some sleep, Naruto yawned. He then realized that there was only one bed and two people. Scratching his head, he decided to let the little dragon god sleep on the bed. He slept on dirt in the past. A hard wooden floor would be no different. Good night, Naruto lay down on his side while Office rested on his bed. She was indifferent to human sexuality, but Naruto knew that it was improper to sleep with a girl, dragon god, thing in the same bed when they were in nothing more than a platonic relationship. The next morning, Sunday, Naruto woke up to Office staring at him from his bed. She calling him her pet was ironic, she's more of a cat waiting for the master to wake up and feed her. Today, he was supposed to meet Kaneko at the old school building at Kuo Academy. He did cancel on Issei, but last minute, he decided to put Issei on an assignment. He'll leave him to Sakura. Now, the first issue, what was he supposed to do with Office? Kaneko Tojo waited patiently for the so-called sage at the designated location. Much like Naruto deduced yesterday, she chose this location because Rias and her fellow peerage members were close at hand. She did not know much of Jiraiya, but she must take a chance, for her sister and her sake. This senjutsu trauma had plagued her for too long. Rias, Akino, and Yuto looked out from the club room window while Kaneko waited at the front door. Yo! Kaneko immediately recognized the voice. She saw the older man walking down the path towards the old building. You know, you could have given me directions or something. Instead, I had to sense your energies to find my way here. That includes your friends up there. Naruto, wearing Jiraiya's face once again, looked up and waved at a particular window. Kaneko realized that he was the real deal right there. Only a senjutsu user could have so accurately pointed out the clubroom's window. I understand your friend's concerns. I'm just an old guy looking for some young girls, but believe me, I know the consequences and hardships facing those who fail at the sage arts, Naruto seriously explained with his arms crossed. Senjutsu was not something to mess with, where turning into a frog statue was only one possible outcome. It's your choice. You led me here. Where shall we train? Track field, Kaneko answered emotionlessly. The two made their way to the quarter-mile elliptical track field. On the way, neither of the two talked to one another. He could feel her analytical, vigilant eyes glancing at him from time to time. Naruto also knew Kaneko's allies were going to tail them. He'll have to do something about that. All right, here, Naruto stretched. Before them was a typical high school track field. The running track wrapped around the central, artificial turf field. The deceptively older-looking man, with the adolescent following close behind, sat right in the middle of the fake grassy field. First, I'll review what exactly senjutsu is. Though, it seems you have experience in this matter. Normally, your life energy is produced from your internal spiritual and physical energies. That is chakra. With senjutsu, you take that internal chakra and augment it with the energy surrounding you, natural energy. With it, you create a much more powerful chakra. How do you overcome the malice that's absorbed with natural energy? Kaneko, sitting in a meditative stance as well, went straight to her point. She stared hard at him with her golden eyes. Naruto had to admit, she had a good poker face, but it was only a mask for pain. He could see past those eyes. I was getting to that. It's true that collecting the natural energy around you will also contain the feelings nature encapsulates. Nature's anger that you absorb also fuses with your subconscious anger and forces it to the surface, much like the chakra aspect. The way to control this is to mediate how much natural energy you take and release. I don't know who or what caused your incident with senjutsu, but for the previous user to take in so much natural energy at one time, then the situation must have been dire. You have to look underneath the underneath. That's the first step towards mastering the sage arts, Naruto lectured while holding up a finger as if he was pointing to notes written on a blackboard. In truth, he did know who caused Kaneko's despair, but at this moment, he could not let that be known. In order to continue on with this training, Kaneko needed a calm, empty mind. Kaneko looked down once Naruto indirectly mentioned her sister. Look underneath the underneath. What does that mean? Wasn't it her sister who killed their last devil master and abandoned her, right? Was there something she had overlooked? At such a young age back then, there may have been something she couldn't understand or clearly remember. That's why she's trying to understand the sage arts. Something drove her sister to go drunk off natural energy, and mastering that energy was the first step in understanding her past. The first step to make yourself one with natural energy is to sense and draw it into your body. Once you make it a part of yourself, you can control its flow in and out of your body. Moving around disturbs the flow of natural energy. All living things mess up the flow without even knowing it. You have to remain completely still to feel nature's flow. If I had to guess, I think you've already passed this first step. Naruto continued on with his lecture. Kaneko nodded in response. It's true that she's able to intake natural energy, but she cannot control or mold it all too well. Now, the problem I think is that you cannot handle the flow coming and going from your body. When I first learned senjutsu, I already knew how to mold chakra, so controlling sage chakra was not that much of a problem. My problem was feeling the flow of natural energy and making it flow into my body. You're the opposite of me. You can feel the flow of natural energy, but can't control how much you take and let go. All three energies, spiritual, physical, and natural, must be in balance with one another to get around that stuff. Try taking in natural energy, Naruto asked the little girl. Without breaking his meditative stance, he stared intensely at the little girl to make sure nothing went astray. He didn't want to explain to Office why he had an animal statue at home or Office break it out of sheer obliviousness. To his request, Kaneko sat motionlessly and meditated. Over a few minutes, the still Kaneko started to show strained facial expressions. Abruptly, two feline ears popped out of her head and a furry tail wriggled out of her back. However, a dark, menacing aura began to emanate from her. Once Naruto noticed the effects, he immediately knocked Kaneko out of mediation with a simple flick of his index finger to the forehead. Groaning in pain, Kaneko held the bruise on her forehead. As I thought you can't balance the three energies in your body, Naruto diagnosed as if he was a doctor with a sick patient. So, the effects were individually based. He turned into a frog while Kabuto turned into a dragonic snake, and Kaneko turned into a cat. What he was unaware of is that Kaneko is a yokai. Rubbing his chin, he had an idea. When I learned sage arts, my master knocked me with his stick whenever I overshot the mark. Man, did that stick hurt, Naruto commented while rubbing his head. He was pretty sure Fukasaku had too much fun whacking him over the head with that stick. I'll help you mediate how much natural energy you intake. Connect your fist with mine, Naruto held out right fist. Kaneko reached out her tiny hand in comparison to that of Naruto. Once their fists connected, Kaneko returned to her mediation. Like before, cat-like characteristics appeared on her head and back. However, Kaneko noticed excess energy not flowing into her, but drawn through her right fist to his body. Shortly, he broke the connection. When he did, Kaneko stopped drawing upon nature and woke up from her meditation. Her body felt different. While the physical change in her body appeared as expected, there was no malice or dementia. Embarrassed, she covered her ears with her hands and white hair, and withdrew her tail. Across from her, she noticed the physical changes Naruto underwent. Red pigmentation surrounded his eyes, his irises turned yellow in color, and his rectangular pupils. If anything, the characteristics reminded her of an amphibian. I took the extra natural energy from your body. Now, a reason I think is that you don't have enough chakra or the body size to control natural energy. Unlike other girls your age, your body is kind of immature. It's going to be hard for your body to maintain natural energy. You don't have enough chakra to control natural energy. You need to train more. With the body thing, I think that the fact you're not a human can help. Yeah, when our energies connected, I felt the difference. I don't know what you are, but if you're not human, your body may be able to get around the size issue, Naruto recommended while remaining in his meditative stance. His revelation shocked Kaneko. He not only figured out her issues, but also noticed that she's not human. Though it appeared he did not know what exactly she was, the fact that he realized it immediately only proved Senjutsu's versatility. Even though he knew she's not human, Kaneko felt no prejudice or hostility from him. More correct to say, she felt nothing around him, as if he was the air. Train some more to increase your chakra levels. Find me after that. We can continue with sage training. There's one more thing. Sage art is a sacred tradition from where I come from and can't freely give out the information. I don't want your friends spying on me from now on. If you don't agree with these conditions, I won't finish your sage training, Naruto sternly warned. The emptiness surrounding him suddenly felt like a heavy weight dropping down on her entire body. To this, Kaneko extended her sensing range. Where are my friends? Kaneko stood up from her meditative stance and took a fighting stance. If she had to, she would fight him here. I said it before, I can't give out the secrets of Senjutsu so easily. My friend took care of them back at the old academy building. Don't worry, they are sleeping safe and sound, Naruto explained calmly. Unable to trust him, Kaneko remained in her fighting stance with her left fist ahead, right fist guarding her chest, and a square base to maintain balance. That'll be enough for today. Too much sage training will strain your small body. Get some rest. Come and find me again after you increased your chakra, and with that said, Naruto stood up and disappeared with a whirl of leaves right before Koneko's eyes. Quickly rushing back to the occult research clubroom while expending the extra boost from Senjutsu, Kaneko flew over the empty school grounds and entered through the open window. Using up her Senjutsu, her cat ears and tail disappeared. Inside, she found Rias, Akino, and Yuto asleep on the couches. There was no evidence of battle or resistance. Whoever did this was quick as an assassin, all three could have died. Thankfully, this person killed no one. Illusion. Genjutsu. Kaneko shook her master awake. Kaneko. Rias slowly stirred awake. Sitting at the head desk, Rias stretched her sore body. What happened? Where am I? I'll explain everything later, Kaneko answered and went to wake up the others. Soon with everyone awake, the young cat retold the group about Jiraiya and his potential threat. The entire room was silent. The house of Grimory's heiress and next in line to succeed the head of the household, Rias, could have died due to their carelessness and lack of information. A war could have broken out over her death. Searsex would definitely look for revenge against whoever killed her. Though, Kaneko benefited from this encounter with Naruto. However, was it worth the risk? Oh my, this is very serious, Akino broke the silence while she sat on the couch right of the table in the center of the room. These three certainly are a problem. They could kill us at any moment. Unless Jiraiya can be in two places at once, either Sasuke or Sakura placed a stronger illusion on us. We would have forgotten why we were at school today if Kaneko didn't explain what happened. However, they didn't kill us or wipe out Koniko's memories, Rias added from the front desk of the Occult Research Clubroom. I don't know how to explain their actions. Kaneko, is there anything else you can tell us? The king asked her servant while Akino decided to prepare tea to calm everyone's nerves. I don't know if I can. Kaneko hung her head low and sunk into the cushion opposite of Rias and across the table. He warned you all that if any of you continued to spy on him, he'll stop training me in sage arts. There are two options: let Kaneko continue sage training and no longer interfere with Jiraiya's plans, or spy on those three, but lose her training. For Kaneko, there may never be another chance to learn senjutsu, but is it worth her friends' lives? Kaneko, I advise you don't meet that man again. Yuto Kiba, standing next to Ria's desk, input his opinion. With his past, he certainly knew the dangers of men with hidden agendas. Kaneko looked up at her brother figure. That man may be using you to get closer to Rias. He already planted 2 spies into our school. If either Uchiha or Haruno had the ability to trap us in such an illusion, we wouldn't suspect a thing from them. This is my fault. Kaneko brought her legs up to her chest, wrapped her arms around, and sunk her head down. If I had been stronger and used senjutsu on my own, then she and you all would not be in this situation. There, don't beat yourself up. Rias sat next to her rook and hugged her tightly against her body. She hadn't seen Kaneko so weak and frail since those days after her brother saved Kaneko from her fate. We'll figure this out. I need to face this on my own. Kaneko gently separated herself from her king and stood up. I need to see him face to face and ask why he agreed to train me. If he doesn't answer, I'll reject his training from then on. Though not on her face, Koniko's determination was felt by everyone in the room. Okay, I trust your judgment. Rias Grimori smiled. Not often Kaneko stood up for herself in such a manner. What kind of master am I if I don't have faith in my servants? The redhead rubbed her rook's little head. In a raiding game or real life, the king needs to take a gamble and trust her pieces. The same day, while Naruto dealt with Kaneko, he issued an assignment for Issei Hayato. Without knowing what the assignment was, Issei followed directions and waited at a clock tower downtown. Apparently, Jiraiya's associate was supposed to meet him here. Suddenly, a pink-haired beauty approached him. Sure, this woman was in Koniko's league in terms of bust size, but what she lacked up top, she made up down below. Those shapely, athletic legs, not too big, but not too skinny, fit nicely in those form-fitting jeans that hugged her tight hips. She wore red tennis shoes, a pink tank top and breezy red jacket to go along with those jeans.
Issei then remembered her conspicuous
pink hair. Aren't you the new girl who sits behind me in homeroom?
Issei asked.
Yeah, Sakura Haruno, pleased to make your acquaintance. Sakura shook his hand.
Issei noticed how firm and strong her grip
was. Pulling back, he shook his circulation-deprived hand. That damn Jiraiya asked me for a favor. I bet anything that man is lollygagging somewhere and doing research. Sakura held up a folded fist to demonstrate her frustration. Issei took a slight step back from the dangerous, dark aura surrounding the pink head. So, what did Jiraiya want me to do? Well, follow me. I'll explain along the way. Sakura motioned to the brown-haired teenager. He wanted them to go volunteer. Actually, Sakura was going to orientation by herself, but Naruto decided to tack Issei on since Jiraiya bailed on him last minute. Walking for 15 minutes, they arrived at a soup kitchen. The line was really long just for food. He hadn't realized this many people needed food assistance. He saw many homeless men, women, children, and elderly who probably have been in line since early this morning. The two went inside for orientation. After an hour-long, boring, and tedious information session and complimentary video, Sakura and Issei finally geared up with hairnets, aprons, and gloves. The two were ordered to serve food and wait at tables. When they arrived at the cafeteria, Issei was completely shocked at the numbers eating this packaged, processed food that may be their only meal of the day. It really hit home how fortunate he was. Unable to dwell on his lucky birth, Issei was handed a dish by Sakura to serve an elderly lady sitting in a wheelchair. As Issei found out, this lady lived on the streets. Immigrating to Japan at a young age, she was unmarried her entire life, and because of this, employers saw her unmarried status as a stigma. She had been in and out of low-paying jobs until she grew too old to work. All she had to her name were the few plastic bags carrying precious possessions in her wheelchair. Stop standing there dumbfounded. Serve the next table. Sakura prodded the young teenager with another plate. This time, it was to a former war veteran. He survived World War II, but traumatized at what he had done in the past. Hunched over the table, the tattered man stared into empty space without any life in his eyes. From what I heard, that guy was a soldier who participated in the rape of Nanking, Sakura added. That other lady over there was a survivor of that atrocious event. Our history course just started going over World War II, but did you read anything about the rape of Nanking? No, but if there was anything, I don't remember, Issei guiltily admitted. He was never a diligent student since elementary school. Well, that's because we haven't gotten to it yet, but I studied ahead of the assigned chapters. There was a single paragraph barely describing the event, Sakura said disgusted. What exactly was the rape of Nanking?
Issei asked.
Truth be told, he didn't really care about Japan's history, or anyone else besides him as a matter of fact. Hell, today was the first time he realized there were so many in poverty and homeless right in his neighborhood, and never paid them any attention. All he cared about before meeting Jiraiya were beasts and women. A shameful, disgraceful mark on Japanese history, the Nanking Massacre, or Rape of Nanking, was an episode of mass murder and rape. Japanese troops captured Nanking, which was the Chinese capital back then. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese, civilians and disarmed combatants, were murdered and raped. The city was completely left in shambles. Sakura shook her head as she short-handed the information. Even here, war was everywhere, in the past, present, and foreseeable future. Then why is there so little information about it?
Issei,
So-called righteous hot-blooded fury boiling inside, demanded. Because Japanese nationalists and the government want to promote a revisionist history, even though the common consensus amongst the public is that it really occurred and just as horribly as past veterans described, Sakura answered grimly. In order to protect their national interests, politicians in the Japanese government want to influence new generations of Japanese children. Nationalists, though a minority, have a say in the government and want to erase Japan's dark past through propaganda and manipulation of recorded history. However, look at those two, Sakura pointed out once again, the lady survivor of the rape of Nanking, and the male war veteran of the rape of Nanking. See their pain. Jiraiya wanted you to see the hardships other people go through and to empathize with them. The anger you may be feeling right now, if you let it fester and eat away at you, that anger will turn to hatred. Where will you direct your hatred? At the government? At war veterans? At the entire world? Where will it end? You do something unforgivable out of hatred, others will come at you in vengeance. Sakura dealt a rude awakening at the naive Issei. In her mind, she recalled a red-haired, frail man who once brought her home to its knees. She was right, the longer she talked, the angrier Issei felt. He wanted to take out his anger on the elderly war veteran for the sake and justice of the old lady who survived the rape of Nanking. Unable to stand anymore, Issei took a seat. Sakura sat next to him. Someone very close to me, a sibling student under Jiraiya, once said, "We are just ordinary people driven to seek vengeance in the name of justice, and if one was to call vengeance justice, such justice will only breed further revenge, and trigger a vicious cycle of hatred. Right now, we live in such a cycle. I know the past and can foretell our future. It is the same as our history, so we believe that human beings can simply never understand each other, and never will. This world of ours is ruled by hatred, and hatred alone." Sakura closed her eyes as she finished her speech.
Issei, awestruck, had no words to say.
Whoever this person was, he must have had been through all 9 levels of hell to believe in such ideology. The vengeance Issei sought against the war veteran for the old lady's justice that will only breed more vengeance in the name of justice. Thus, continuing this vicious cycle of hatred. Issei clenched his eyes, griped his fists, and grit his teeth. Is this really what humanity is? What kind of society was Jiraiya trying to prepare him for? He's never felt so confused and emotional ever in his life so far. Then, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Jiraiya wanted to lend this to you. Sakura handed him a book before returning to her volunteer duties. Return it to him when you're finished. That's his only copy. Tales of a Gutsy Ninja. Thanks for watching.